Okay, let's build sermon slides. Today is Thursday, and today is the day that we get our manuscript or slides points from the speaker for the week. And this week is Pastor Larry, our lead pastor. He does a full manuscript. What I do is I keep the same module here. Let me go over real quick how these are triggered and how these are used. I keep the manuscript right here on my iPad. That way I can scribble notes on it. We also print this out for our slides operator. I do have a position called sermon slides operator. Their sole job is just to read through the manuscript or the speaker's notes and trigger the slides. Me, as the production director, I would then go in and clear out the lower thirds or clear out the content from the wall if and when needed, or also take over some of the overlays. The way I do some things, I'm not going to go too far in depth with the overlays and how this works. I will do another video on that. I am using props for all of my video overlays. My camera switcher or camera team, all they have to worry about is solely capturing the content. They don't have to worry about pulling in downstream key or anything like that. This is just automatically always on, and the DSK comes from ProPresenter and the production director. I have lower thirds for different segments of the sermon. One is full screen, and that's actually the same thing overlaid right now. I just have them called different things, but essentially it's really doing the same thing. This is the full screen for imagery or videos or anything like the bumper. The bumper is pulling the same thing as this, is just a different prop. So if I go over here to LED wall, these are the video ones that we usually like for the bumper. So let's go back to Sunday. This is the same thing that shows as full screen. Instead of full screen, it's a lower third like pip in the bottom right corner of the screen. I also do a super source from our ATEM, and that's controlled from ProPresenter as well. I tell the switchers whenever they see super source triggered, they need to make sure they don't switch cameras. I'll go over how that works in another video. Those are the overlays we use for sermons. The first module is the bumper, because we have a scripture reader that reads the scripture of what the weekend is about. Then we have the speaker, lower thirds. This module is controlled by me as the production director. Then the sermon slides operator has an iPad mini with ProPresenter remote. They either sit in the green room, the control room, or the booth with me. We'll sit together and they'll just do the sermon slides, and I'll clear it out like I had explained. At the end of the sermon, I then take back over to clear this out during the prayer. I have triggers and commands from ProPresenter to talk to Ableton and our lighting software. So that's my position. This is a cookie cutter template that I base off of every weekend. What I do is keep them, I just don't keep them within ProPresenter. Once I have built it, and we'll do that today, I will save this as a bundle, and then it gets saved to our NAS on the network. I export it as images and send it off to all of our volunteers that need the content ahead of time. So let's start with the sermon slides. Larry had sent me his manuscript already, so I'm just gonna start from the top here. What we do is, the font I have is 35 and the scripture number is 25. I also have the reference separate from the scripture itself, and the quotes have a slightly different look here. Color code these so the operator on the iPad sees the color codes, and the color codes just mean that these 3 blue slides are back to back and go together, and that also changes the looks with what calls the lower third here, the prop. So like the first one will animate the prop in, and as I go, the prop just stays. And then I clear it out. Next one, prop animates back in. When it clears out, it animates out as well. If I had that same prop command on all 3 of these slides, it would animate every time I select it, and I don't want that. So that's really the only thing of the color coding here using groups, is to separate them or segment the slides to show that these are together, and this next color is its own slide to be triggered later. That does reflect in the manuscript as well. Just more of a quick glance, it's easy to find where you're at, especially on an iPad mini. Okay, so let's just get down to the bottom of this and get started. Okay, I'm just gonna copy this, and then we'll go into the edit function, select all, and then paste. I have it set to where paste and match style is within the hotkey command. So if I were to just paste, it's gonna paste it normally. Then I select the reference number, change the font size to 25 on that. And then the 27 is not needed because that's already shown. Then I take this, cut that, and then I also do cleaning this up so it looks better. Let's make sure there's a 1 in there, not 2. And then go in here, highlight, there you go. So that's the slides done now. And then looks like that's by itself. So the next one will have to have the prop command on that slide. And we're back to, what is this? Looks like he's not going to actually read it. It will just need to be pulled up. He's talking about Romans. Nope, so Romans. Matthew tells us that Jesus and Bethany. So what Matthew is this? 26, 6 through 13. It's Matthew 26. You have to get rid of the 25 first because that is what dictates the size of the font that comes through. The highlighting is actually, you'll notice on the manuscript that he has bolds. Anything that's highlighted is a slide. Anything that's highlighted in yellow is a slide. If it's highlighted in green, it's an image. If it's highlighted in orange or pink, which I've seen at the top there, that's just a note for him, not for the operator. But the bold gets bolded in a different contrast of color here for the slides. Let's paste that, change this and this to 25. Get rid of all of the spaces except for, I want all of the scriptures to be separate. Stanzas. It's 26, 7, 6, and 7. And then this, I'll need to make sure that there is a command on there. So now, let's just get into the sermon look here so you can see on the LED wall and everything how that looks. Bumper, and then the title slide goes into Sammy. This shows me the lower thirds as an operator. This kind of shows me what I need to know. This is the confidence monitor. This is my alpha keyer. So it just stays up there like this, as you see with the lower third on the screens while the person is reading. And then when they're finished, this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. They walk off. Our speaker then steps up. Lower third comes in. 8 seconds later, it automatically clears out. And then it jumps to the next slide. Each reader has their own prop that is called by their own nameplate here. All right, so let's go back to the Sunday. And that triggers on there. So now you can see how it works. Since there's no command here, if I were to just click on this, you'll look at this lower third, the lower third stays. But if I were to continue jumping with that command on there, it animates every time it gets triggered. I don't want that if it's back to back, right? Another thing you got to keep in mind is the lower thirds, for some reason right now with ProPresenter 18, the props doesn't carry over the color that I'm changing this to. However, it does on the LED wall and it does on my side screens. Those aren't props, those are just straight outputs, but for some reason the props are not pulling in the color. So hopefully they can fix that. Okay, Simon the Leper, and then alabaster to perfume. So that's as well as poured. And I'm holding down command and find poured, and you double click and that adds that. So you don't have to do the color picker each time. Okay, so then now if I were to go here and play that, you'll notice on the lower third that all the text is white, but my LED wall does show it. My side screens does show it, but the props don't for some reason. The only reason this is yellow is because within the prop itself, I have it yellow. Okay, so let's go back to the operator view here. And then we're on this slide. Copy. And I don't think I changed that font size. Let's be sure I changed that on the last slide too. Try to get rid of any unnecessary spacing. This is acceptable because it's technically separate. And what reminded me to mention this was if I went all the way over like this, including the very last character, the outputs would, now I could be wrong since the 18 update, but on 7, ProPresenter 7, I really noticed this and I've been refraining from it moving forward. It ignores the colorama that you change this to. So if I change this to yellow, the output wouldn't take in that color. Everything would be white like the props are now. But if you leave the last character the color you want, then it will take in the 2 colors on all the outputs. Hopefully that made sense. Okay, that's that slide. And then that one's separate as well, so we need to make sure that there's a prop on that. And then that scripture as well. And then these all need to change, so actually I'll just keep that one blue. This one will go. And I probably should do this separately, but since I'm doing them all together and I can actually see it right now, is why I'm doing it now. Scripture, this will be, that's not even ready yet. Let's see what the next thing is. I think it's scripture. Next one is scripture as well, so I'll just duplicate this. 6. Because I think so fast, I'll forget that I already did something. What are you willing to give me? So he's got a story he's going to talk about with the people. Let's use this one instead. Why not? Yeah, you know what? Let's do it as scripture instead. I think I see where he's going with this. And then 16, he totally cut this out. I'm now officially confused. Something tells me this is probably a different version between the two that... Okay, so let's just... Oops. 35 is the side, so I went down. And of course it's 25. Let's do that. 30 pieces of silver. To be the only thing highlighted. More scripture, which is John 13. Do quickly. John 13, 27, 28. There another John 13. Okay, the next one's not really a quote, it's more of a point. I'll go back up and finish those groups. I usually do that last anyways. There is a trick to that last character thing I was talking about with the color difference, what the outputs. If you have to have the last character colored, then what I do is make a period, highlight that period, and make it a font size of 1. You can't really see it, but it's a character that the outputs listen to. That's my little workaround. Okay. Matthew 27 again. Or now going to Matthew 27. Betrayed innocent blood to us. So it looks like he's actually going straight back to the same slide, just with a different... Oh, it is just a build. Do I want it? Yeah, let's just do a new slide. That's your responsibility. The addition. So it goes from, where'd it go? Here to here. This is 5. Through the money into the temple. Into the temple? Was it for tech in the temple? So this is another point. Takes responsibility. That's it. Oh, wow. That was easy. So then I'll get rid of these. I think I actually did go over this in one of the last videos. As the operator, we inform the band that is in the green room watching this on a multi-viewer, and I'll show you that in a different video as well, how that all works and how I'm feeding them information, visually at least. I'll sit down with Larry today. He'll come meet with me in about 45 minutes and go over these slides. He'll tell me where he wants the band to come to the wings and when he wants them to officially come out on the stage. Usually the band will pad underneath the prayer as part of the transition going out of the sermon into the response song. And that call comes from the operator here. So what we'll do is either, this is a label essentially, so I'm just adding a label and I have them saved here. And then I can put it on any slide here that I want. So if I want the band to come to wings at this last slide, which would most likely be looking at his manuscript. Let's go back down to the bottom. So he probably would want the band to the wings on that one, this last slide. And then the band out, most likely, I have a feeling this is actually going to be more like this. Nope, like that. And then we'll remove this. Slightly at maybe a page or two after this is when the band will get called to the wings, and then I will call the band out at this part, and then I would just disable this because it's not needed. Okay, so now next thing to do is go over the top of this again and make sure that it's all doing what it's supposed to do. So very first slide is by itself, and then eventually that would get called out. I actually have buttons here on the keyboard on my side to either pull out just the props and keep the information up on the LED wall. Let's see if I can go to multi-viewer, that should show it. So this is our alpha keyer, this is what's on the LED wall, and this is our side screens. This is one of the screens out of the 8 things that they're looking at in the multi-viewer backstage in the green room and behind the wings right there. This is one of the screens that is there. So this is where they see the band to wings and band to come out information. If we want I have a button here to call out just the props and keep the content up. That way it's not cluttering up our video. Or the next one that I have here, it calls props, or it clears props and the content in one. So I have the choice there. One thing we don't want to ever do really is clear the slides out. That'll keep the lower third up there. That still needs to clear out. That's why I don't have that. That is separate, so that's going to come up like this, and then I will eventually clear it out, and then they will trigger this one, which comes up by itself, and then I will clear that out myself. And I also like to make sure that justification and everything looks proper on all these outputs. You'll see what I do here. I'll take, and I'll just write the slide number and circle it, and then any other notes at that point throughout the thing as well. So 27 is slide 1. And I do this for myself so that when the slides operator is going through all this, I know that they're triggering the right one at a glance. That is building sermon slides. What I do is I export this as a bundle. I'll save that bundle. This is not 1025 anymore. It's actually 02. When Larry comes and has this meeting with me to go over all this, if he makes any changes, I will resave it as V2, V3. Secondly, what I do is actually when I'm done with him, I will do it now just for the video purpose, but I will save this as the same day and then save it to the desktop as images. And once that finishes exporting, I'll compress it and send that compressed image folder to all of the volunteers operating the service with us. Okay, I think that's it. That's building sermon slides, or at least how I build my sermon slides. If you're curious about my approach on a lot of this, let me know. Thanks a lot, guys. Talk to you later.